Assalamu alaikum to some of you and peace to the rest of you. Black is back again, and this time addressing an idea that I certainly consider to be a misconception, that Islam is not black enough. It's not sufficiently black. It's not anti-white supremacy enough for black people to accept it and actually make any progress. Some point to the NOI and how the NOI is a very tough organization and what all it was able to do and how black people are still in trouble. And others point to the Orthodox Muslims in the community and how they can't do what the NOI can do. Yet their Islam is more in line with what was revealed. And I would like to briefly say that while there are elements of truth to this, we black folks have been given misconception after misconception. If you find that you're given misconception after misconception, you have to stop and think about what your oppressor does not want. Now, if your oppressor is truly evil, not because of DNA, but because of what they've done, you have to stop and think about what combinations they don't want. What is it that would put an end to these free benefits they get and don't work for? And then you understand what the truth is. And we black folks value accurate information, but we don't always have accurate information. Yet and still we do value it. What does it say to us? Most African Americans who become Muslim, and most Africans in the Americas who become Muslim, do so because they start off looking for the solution to the suffering of their people. Later on, they find out that, you know what, hey, actually, yeah, there's some truth to Islam, because they become more objective in their searches. And in their searches, they grow in maturity and objectivity. They find that there are certain objective proofs about Islam. And so they say, yeah, this actually does make sense. And they accept it. And as we know, we go into anything 200%. A Jamaican, a black Brazilian, a black Costa Rican, black Guyanese, a black Colombian, a black Panamanian, an African Mexican, an African American will go into something 200%. And this is something we got from back home, because when Christianity was introduced, we went into it 200%. We were more Christian than anybody else that brought Christianity to us. And as a matter of fact, Christianity largely started with us. When it was reintroduced to us, we went into it 200%. Yet and still, when Islam was introduced to us, we went into it 200%. And I want to make something very clear that's not been made clear before, and I don't want to speak too quickly for those who know English as a second language, and I don't want to speak too slowly for those who have things they have to do and don't have a half hour to sit up listening to my black behind talk and preach a sermon. I want it to be understood that, for one, the Arabs have had a lot of bad habits, and they've had a lot of white supremacist brainwashing done before and after having real contact with white people. Yes, I do blame them for this. I mean, they started off as black. Seemed like as soon as they got a different complexion on average, they started with this white supremacy BS. I think they were this way to a certain extent before white people were, honestly, despite having come from us. Sometimes I think that white supremacy started with Arabs and not white folks. It may have started with light-skinned Negroes in East Africa, for all I know, but so far it seems to have started outside of Europe. They have a bad habit of calling black people slaves, and only black people slaves. You check them on it, they say, well, we're all slaves of God, like that's really going to solve the problem. And I've told some of them, no, we are, but that's not what you meant, you rat bastard mulatto hypocrite. You are a disgrace, really. And the thing that has to be understood is that while we've been given multiple misconceptions until now, we're at this point where some of us are accepting Islam, real Islam, but then losing all militancy, and then others of us are retaining the militancy but cannot accept Islam even if you could objectively argue the proofs of it. It is because we have each been convinced of one thing, and that is that if you accept Islam authentically, you have to lose your militancy against white supremacy. That is a mistake. But this is, in fact, a mistake, a misconception, and we bought it. That's why some of us are saying, you know what, I'm done with this black nationalism stuff. I'm done with all this pro-black fistiony and all this resistance. I found something that just makes it all not matter anymore, and it makes it all go away. And then you go on Hajj and find out that for some nationalities they don't care, and then for others, no, nigga, you black, get back. Or you go to the masjid and you praying next to all these so-called beautiful brothers, and then you start talking about, well, look, what about the ladies that are single? And then they make it known to you that they don't want you marrying any of their relatives because they don't want their grandkids getting darker and blacker and nappier headed and wider nosed and bigger lipped and bigger footed. Hey, they start making it obvious to you, and then you have a crisis. It's because we accepted a misconception. Now, what happens if we flip the misconception and understand that actually, no, there are Islamic evidences for being even more militant against white supremacy because it's a type of oppression, and all oppressors deserve to be opposed militantly, and that this is actually Islam. And there are no evidences that we're supposed to tone it down and just tolerate oppression because we're Muslim. We're not Christian. If this gets out, and one of the ways I know is that I'm probably going to start being harassed by police if I ever go back to the Western nations at this point. But if this gets out, what the hell you think is going to happen? If it becomes obvious that actually when you accept Islam, you're supposed to be the most militant against white supremacy. You don't have to go around hating white people for being white. It wouldn't make any sense. But against white supremacy, you got to be the most militant, which means that you also oppose colonization and Zionism, white Zionism, so to speak. I'm a black Zionist. That's a different story. And I meant what I said. It sounds racist, doesn't it? No, this anti-racist. That's the whole point. But when you start realizing that to become Muslim, if you're really serious about this religion from Allah, that you will hate oppressors unconditionally. And then if you're going to help your brother who's Muslim but he's an oppressor, you can only help him by stopping him from doing the oppression. That means you have to oppose him. That's what it means. That mean you beg him and plead. No, it means you pick up a gun and you pull a trigger and shoot him in the leg and say, if you try this again, next time I'm going to shoot you in your chest. We're going to have your janazah, you oppress somebody again. Try it again, nigga. When you realize that that's what it means being a Muslim. Oh, man. Now, that right there is a big threat to white supremacy. So you see, white supremacy and colonization are false gods. They're false religions. And what they've sought to do is ruin the understanding of the Muslims of what it means to be a Muslim. So that what happens? The Muslims don't oppose white supremacy. So that what happens? The Muslims accept white supremacy. Accept colonization. And then at the end of the day, they don't know why they're so happy when a white person comes in and accepts Islam, and why they don't care at all when somebody really dark walks into the masjid and accepts Islam, and they're not even aware of it. I'm going to, since I've taken 9 minutes already to say this, let me just say, look, black people, if you believe that Islam is insufficient for black folks to be saved, I'm going to give you the search terms by which you can do the research and find out whether that really is true or not, and you won't find it to be true. There are two types of you. Those of you who say that Islam is insufficiently pro-black or is white supremacist, you come in two types only. There are those of you who believe that Islam is insufficiently pro-black or it's too approving of white supremacy. not militant enough against it. You actually believe it because it's what has been said. And if that wasn't the case, and you found evidence that it is a true religion, you would accept it. And so for you, you'll do the research, and you'll probably be in someone's masjid next week. And when you hear them preach this watered down version of Islam, you may be checking them on it. I advise you to go and do the research. You're the ones that I want to go and look up these search terms I'm going to give you. If you are someone who does not care if it is the truth or not, you're not going to follow the rules. And that's really what it boils down to. It's not because you don't want to be around people calling themselves Muslims and they're racist, but because you simply don't want to follow the rules. If you feel like having a drink, you're going to take a drink. And if you feel like having a ham sandwich, you're going to eat it. And if you feel like fornicating, you're going to fornicate. And if you're actually that kind of person, then you don't need to do the search terms. You can turn this recording off now. If you know that that's who you are, it doesn't matter what I say, no biggie. I'm not trying to harm you, but go ahead and turn this thing off. It won't help you. If you change your mind, then you can listen to the rest of this. It will help you. To those of you who actually have been taught and convinced that it's just not pro-victim enough, and it's not anti-oppressor enough to be pro-black and anti-white supremacy, understand that there are search terms I can help you with. Look up Abdullah Hakim Quick. Multiple spellings will lead you to the same person. He's a historian. He puts that stuff to rest. He has a book out called Deeper Roots, and he's got some videos out. He puts that mess to rest. This could take you 2 weeks to go through all the information. Look up the Wolof Revolt or the Wolof Rebellion, and you see how early that was. You will see that it was actually less than 30 years after Spain was reconquered by the non-Muslims, and the Muslims were pushed out of Spain. Less than 30 years after that, the Spaniards were grabbing Muslim Africans and bringing them to the Americas, and some of them got up and revolted. This was one of the first slave revolts in the Americas, the Wolof Rebellion. I don't know if it's the first, but it was one of them. It was not just a slave rebellion. It was a jihad against slave owners and white supremacists. That's the truth of the matter. If you look up the Portuguese going into the Congo and Angola and Zaire in the first place, look up them going there to begin with when they went. And this was the beginning of the European slave trade of Africans on a mass scale. When you go there and you look that up, you'll find that the Portuguese went there specifically because they weren't Muslims. And they were going to spread Catholicism into that area. Now, what was that about? Well, two things happened. One, the Portuguese knew that Islam does not make you a good victim of oppression because their religion is against committing oppression. They knew this. If they had not known this, if Islam had been, tacitly approving of white supremacy, then Europeans would have accepted it. They didn't because they know it's not. It never was from the beginning. Arabs have been a problem. They have been brainwashed with that stuff. That is true. Arabs, but it's not in the religion of Islam. Pakistanis and Indians have been brainwashed with that mess. Bangladeshis have been brainwashed with it, but it was not in Islam. What is the proof of that? Well, look at the Koreans and the Chinese and the Japanese. They got that same brainwashing. They ain't Muslim. They ain't even friendly to Islam in their borders. Did you know that? No. So, that being said, look up the search terms I mentioned. Look up the Malay Revolt in Salvador de Bahia, Brazil. That was a Muslim-led slave revolt. Look up Uthman Danfodio. F-O-D-I-O is how you spell his last name. He wrote a document in Nigeria. And now, if you read the document and you look up what it said, there was no inferiority complex to the Arabs. You see, Islam had spread into West Africa before Uthman Danfodio wrote the document, before he was born. He and his people had no concept of being inferior to Arabs. It didn't exist among African Muslims. Arabs never conquered black Africa. It never worked. They couldn't. and they admitted it. So Islam spread through trade. There were some Arabs that went there to trade, and then the word of Islam spread. But they didn't even stay behind as teachers of the religion after the religion began to spread. Why? They weren't seen as fit to teach. The truth be told, black folk became Muslim and they excelled in Islam, and they had Islamic universities in Western Africa, not just Timbuktu, but also others. And those who taught in the North African Islamic universities could fail the entrance exams to be students in the West African Islamic universities. Look that up too. Even John Henry Clark, who wasn't in favor of Islam for black people, admitted this. He admitted it. The problem is not that Islam in its authentic revelation form is insufficient for black people. The problem is that those who have been Muslim and associate their heritage with Islam have been insufficiently Muslim to realize that they have to be against white supremacy because it's a form of oppression. That's where the issue comes in. This being said, I've already taken 16 minutes and I didn't want to. So look up these search terms and it's going to lead you to learn more. If you are afraid, if you think, well, you know what, I would accept Islam, but I can't stand to be around a bunch of other racists in the masajid praying next to them, then I would say, you know what, you may not have to. If you can be convinced that Islam is true, and you just thought before that it was insufficiently black, and you do the search terms and realize, no, this is actually very revolutionary. It is the most revolutionary of all revelations. And it is the revelation of the ultimate revolution. And if you can see that when you do the research, then understand you don't have to be around Muslims that are racist. All you got to do is give everybody a fair shot. When you find out that they got some white supremacist ideas, you cut them off. You done with them until they change who the F they are. And you tell them that that's what you're doing. When they come, brother, why haven't you been to our house in a little while? Well, you remember when you called black people slaves? Oh, brother, we're all slaves of God. Yeah, but that's not what you meant. Now get out there and start insulting white people and cussing them out. You effed up, that's why. I can be around Muslims who don't have this problem. You tell them. The word will get around. And the ones who, eventually the ones who can't stand that racism and white supremacy from other groups, they'll start to divide themselves from those from that same heritage who go along with the program. It'll happen. I don't know how many generations, but it'll happen. Some of them already exist. You got Muslims now who, when their parents die, they go to the janazah, they go to the funeral, they bury them, but they don't grieve for their parents. Why? They knew their parents were not egalitarian. They knew their parents were terrible as Muslims and biased, tribalist, nationalist, racist, and colorist. And they got sick of it. That's what happens. So that being said, do the search terms and find out for yourself. Those of you who know me personally, I want you to understand something too. Do not come back to me and say, man, why are you wasting your time? You're just trying to get them to accept you because you look like them. No, that's not the case. I'm doing this because I love confronting idiots, especially the ones who claim Islam. You claim Islam, you say you're Muslim, you praying in the ranks with the rest of us, and you stupid as hell about anything. Yeah, I'm going to have a great time arguing with you and tearing your whole mindset and psyche down. When I tell you that actually you are inferior to the ones you thought were inferior because you thought you were more normal. You never thought they were inferior? Yeah, but you thought you were more normal, which is the same thing. So now you become inferior to them. They're better than you. You think black folks are just by default uglier than everybody else? The real reason you should never marry a black woman is because she's superior to you, dummy. Your idea made you inferior to her. Now you're unfit to marry any of them. So if I do catch you marrying one, I'm going to punch you in your mouth. I'm going to beat you like you fornicated with her. I love doing this. It's my hobby. This is my stuff. This is my entertainment. I'm not out here torturing myself. No, I enjoy this. And I'm going to do it again tomorrow. So, that being said, I've already taken 20 minutes. That's long enough. I hope this message has been a benefit. Thank you for your patience. Assalamu alaikum.